Hey YouTube, Kevin Cleary with a knife video for you. Today I have a comparison. I feel like I haven't done a comparison in a while, and you guys know it's one of my favorite kinds of videos to do outside of, more discussion, general discussion videos. I actually really like those the best. But anyway, today I have two very comparable blades, both Spydercos. And I've got to say, as I look at these, I've got two big black Spideys, and normally that would be a little off-putting, but I think in this case it's a little bit exciting. We have here the Spyderco Military in the black DLC coating, and we have the Spyderco Manix 2XL black DLC coating and black G10 handle. Okay, so here are the blades. Now these two blades I think kind of beg for comparison. Okay, when you start comparing these two on paper, it's ridiculous, right? You've got 4-inch S30V blade steel on both, essentially. I'm oversimplifying to make a point. G10 handle, the lockup is different, of course, but these are very, very similar blades. Now the price point is one discrepancy that we will discuss, further down the road, but these are a fairly significant difference in price. Okay, now. Size and weight, again, is fairly different. Let's go ahead and start with that, but I really feel like, these blades have enough in common that they really, really should be compared to one another. Okay, so size and weight. Let's start with the Military since it's a little older and probably a little more popular, even though I'm not sure it deserves to be. So the Spyderco Military is a 9.5-inch knife, 4-inch blade, 5.5-inch handle. It does have a full 3/4 of an inch of cutting edge, and it weighs in at an amazing 4.2 ounces. Now that is extremely lightweight, guys. Like, that is very impressive. Okay, this one has been used a lot and has a lot of mileage on it. Still a great blade at an incredible low weight. Now, on the other hand, the Manix is only a 9-inch blade. It has a 3 7/8 inch blade with 3.5 inches of cutting edge. It has a, 5-inch handle. And so I don't know if you're noticing that, but the blade to handle ratio on the Manix is considerably better than it is on the Military. However, this weighs a full ounce more, weighs in at 5.2 ounces. Now, part of that is fairly evident because you can see there the full stainless steel liners. Now, they are pretty heavily skeletonized, which is going to cut back the weight. However, there's a lot of material here in the lock area that's going to maybe put back some of that weight. So 5.2 ounces, 4.2 ounces, 9.5 inches, 9 inches, but there's only an 1/8 of an inch difference in total blade length, and there's only a 1/4 of an inch difference in cutting edge. Okay, so in terms of size and weight, I've got to say here, I think the edge has got to go to the Military because it's just amazing, those numbers. 9.5 inches on this blade when it's fully open, and only 4.2 ounces. That's a tough number to beat. And of course, the Manix doesn't even try. It wasn't designed around weight. However, it's only 5.2 ounces. Now, although I'm going to say the win goes to the Military, I don't think 5.2 ounces is too heavy at all. Okay? Now, what about the blade? Very, very similar blades on these two. Both, of course, S30V, both full flat ground. Let's start off again with the Military. I think that'll kind of be what we'll always start with. We have a clip point or a modified clip point, however you want to call that. Tons of belly, although there is this little bit of full just straight blade right here, which is actually kind of nice. I do like that. It is a full flat grind, very, very acute point. Now this point is just worn a little bit from sharpening, but nonetheless, still a very acute point. And so a very functional blade, a very big blade. By the way, you've got 3 3/4 inch of cutting edge here, and that pretty much is standard for Spydercos. When you hear whatever number you get with the length of a Spyderco blade, you're going to subtract from that for cutting edge. That's not always true. Some knives, there are lots of knives even that I have in my collection that have a 3.5 inch blade with 3.5 inches of cutting edge, or a 4-inch blade with 4 inches of cutting edge. Not very often does that happen with Spydercos because they often do what some people have called Spidernomics, where there's a finger choil here, or there's this plunge grind that leaves a certain amount of steel where they're going to write, you know, Spyderco and it's made in Golden, Colorado, USA, Earth. By the way, both of these are made in Golden, Colorado, and both of them are made on Earth, which I suppose is important because then you know at least the gravity is the same in both factories. In fact, they're from the same factory. So anyway, so that's the Military. Very good blade, very functional blade. Full flat grind, as I've said, is really, really nice for all kinds of different tasks. It does have a choil here. It's not a big choil, but you can kind of choke up on this and do some fine cutting work if you need to. But you got lots of blade here. Okay, S30V steel is going to perform really nicely in terms of edge holding and sharpening, and it's just a really nice all-around steel. Corrosion resistance. Next, we have the leaf-shaped or drop point blade that we get on the Manix. Again, this is a full flat grind. It's really well done. Now, I will say the Manix has a more consistent belly. There's this portion of the blade here is fairly straight, but you know, not as straight as the Military. So if you really like that more traditional blade where there's at least some straight edge, you may prefer the Military. To me, it's about 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Both have similar edge geometry, very good slicers both. The point on this is not quite as acute, so it might be a little stronger, but to be honest, it's so thin. Both of these blades are pretty thin at the point, and so they're going to be fairly fragile. You're not going to want to go, you know, prying on anything with either one of these blades. Both full flat grind are very functional. Now, I will say this, you lose about 1/4 of an inch of cutting edge in the Manix. So on this blade, there's only about 3.5 inches of cutting edge over 3 3/4 from the Military. Now, to be honest, I don't find a significant difference in the performance of these two blades. I find both of them very, very similar. So I'm going to say the blade is pretty well a tie, okay? I really don't have a preference one over the other. Now again, you may, for aesthetic reasons, for reasons of reach, although that's more of a handle discussion, you may prefer one over the other. And if you do, then that's good. And hopefully this video will maybe help you decide something about which one you prefer. There they are side by side. You can see the similarities and you can see the differences. Now, one thing I will say is the finger choil on the Manix is larger and considerably more comfortable. I feel like I can really choke up on this knife. This one, although I feel like, yeah, I can choke up, I don't feel like I'm quite as in control of this knife as I am with this knife. Now that's sort of a handle discussion, so I'm going to hold off on that a little bit and declare the blades just a tie. In terms of lockup and deployment, both of these, of course, deploy via Spidey hole. Both of them are very fast, very easy. They can be spider flicked. You can do the old spider drop, or you can open both of them, you know, in a very slow, controlled way, just like that. So both great blades, both deploy very well. Now, I'm going to say, in terms of longevity, in terms of strength, and just in terms of my own preference, I think the ball lock, the caged ball lock, is a better lock. I think it's a little bit stronger, and I think it is going to last a little bit longer. And part of the reason I say that is because the Military has the rounded blade tang, and this one, and I've heard of others doing this, has developed a little bit of lock rock. So as you put some pressure on this blade, you can get the lock to move just a little bit, and that is rather annoying for me. And it's just a function of the way the blade works. The caged ball lock, because of its design, is not as likely to develop that kind of an issue, okay? And if it did, you could actually replace the little ball. Now, yeah, some would say, hey, you could replace the liner in here, and I would say that's a valid point, okay? But for my mileage, I mildly prefer the lock on the Manix 2, although in terms of deployment, I think both of them are a tie. So lockup and deployment, I'm going to give a slight edge to the Manix 2, even though it's a very slight edge, okay? Now, part of that is just because liner locks are good, but I prefer other locking mechanisms over the liner lock, okay? Not that the liner lock is bad, it's not that I don't have lots of liner lock knives that I love, but it's just not my absolute favorite, okay? So let's move on to the handle. Here in the handle there are some more significant differences. Okay, both of these handles are extremely ergonomic, both are very comfortable, both have lots of room for your hand. The Manix locks you in considerably more, but it also gives you far less options, okay? On the Military, you can choke up, you can choke down, you've got lots of different positions that are available and usable for the way you hold on to the knife. The Manix, not so much. Reverse grip is okay, but again, you've pretty much got to be between these two choils, okay? You have no choice. Between here and here is where your hand pretty well has to go. In more of an ice pick grip, the Military is definitely superior to the Manix, although I don't really use that grip for anything ever. In standard grip, they're very similar with this one difference. The Manix does lock your hand in better, and it does that because of the shape of the handle, okay? So the G10 is very similar. I wouldn't say one is more grippy than the other. They're quite close. Now, one thing I will say is there's a ton of handle here. You got a big long handle, 5.5 inches for a 4-inch blade. Here, you only have 5 inches for a 4-inch blade. So the blade to handle ratio is considerably better on the Manix, which means you end up carrying a knife that's quite a bit shorter. Now, the Manix is definitely thicker. It's a very wide blade. The Military is thinner. That may be something that is a deal breaker for you one way or the other. For me, I don't really notice. And by the way, in this dimension, they're almost exactly the same, so not even worth comparing. But the Manix is going to be wider. It takes up a little more room in pocket. And I should have mentioned that back at size and weight, where I generally speak to how easy or not easy they are to carry. Although I don't notice a significant difference between these two, okay? Now, so what else do we need to mention on the handle? Both are Torx construction. Both you can take apart and fix if you needed to. Lanyard hole on the Manix 2 is quite large, and it's quite small on the Military. I don't know, you'd be hard pressed to get paracord through here. Here, I mean, you could double paracord up, slip it through, and have like a loop on here instead of the typical way. Okay, so lanyard hole. Now, here's the big one for me and for a lot of people, the pocket clip. The Military, where you see this pocket clip, right side, tip down, is the only configuration available. On the Manix, it's right side tip up or left side tip up. Now, there's no tip down option, but I think there's some wisdom in that because Spyderco knew most people are going to prefer tip up carry, and certainly I obviously by far prefer tip up carry. And so for me, that's definitely a takeaway, a limitation on the Military. And lots of people have commented on that before, okay? One solution may be to buy a titanium Military and have it retapped for tip up carry. Okay, there are lots of modders that will do that for you. So, handle, in terms of retention and control, I've got to give it to the Manix, and in terms of where that pocket clip is, again, I've got to give it to the Manix. So the handle, I do prefer the Manix 2 over the Military. Now, I still like the Military, and I carry the Military quite often, but I do prefer the handle. I do prefer the overall ergonomics of the handle on the Manix, including those slightly proud liners. I have some people have complained about that, but I actually kind of like it. It does grip your hand, and with gloves on, it makes it even more grippy. All right, so the handle goes to the Manix. Now let's talk about price. Okay, here's one of those things that you go, why? What is the deal with this? The Military is a popular blade. It's a great blade, but it's an expensive blade. Okay, this guy runs, stock. If this was just satin finish, black handle, this thing is going to run you about 150 bucks American. On the other hand, the Manix 2XL in satin finish can be had for like 105, and if you shop around, you can get it even cheaper. Now, I shopped around a whole lot, and I got this one for like 116 with the black coating. Normally, they run around 130, 135 with the black coating, and the the Military with the black coating is going to run you about 160 bucks. I don't know if I said this right before. If you get this stock with satin finish, it's about $140. In the black DLC, it's about $160. The Manix stock with satin finish is going to be about $100, $105 on Blade HQ today. I found them for less. I found them for like 95 bucks. On the other hand, with the black coating, it's going to be about 130 something. I said I got mine for 116 with the black coating. So I had to shop around a bit and eventually found a good deal on it. All right, so that's how they compare in terms of price. Now this is what I don't get. The Manix has S30V blade steel. It's a great knife. For some reason it's not crazy popular. That's the only thing I can think of, and I don't understand really why it's not way more popular. This is honestly a phenomenal blade and I really, really like it. I can't, you know, you're getting a lot of blade for your money at $100 for this in the satin finish. Okay, so on money, I've got to give it to the Manix because I don't think you're getting a lot extra with the military that you don't get with the Manix, but you're paying quite a bit extra. You know, about a good $40 extra on that. So in my book, oh yeah, I should say, what are they overall good for? You know, both of these are going to be great for, you know, handgun backup. They're both going to be good for, you know, combat situation. You're a soldier or something like that. Both of these are going to be good EDC blades. They both carry well enough that you could easily everyday carry either one of these blades and have no issues. Now I will say the pocket clip on both of these has issues. You see that I've got the Casey Lynch clip on mine, and it's a huge improvement as far as I'm concerned. Not that I hated my Manix before I got the Casey Lynch clip, but I just much prefer it with it. Okay, the military, not much to say about the clip. It's just an ongoing bother that they will not come up with a way of mounting this. And I know it's all G10 down here, so there's nothing to screw to. Anyway, kind of wish they had, you know, inserts or something that they would do like Cold Steel does with their blades. So overall, you know, both of these are large EDCs. Both of these would be fine in combat. Both of these would be fine for most tasks. I wouldn't say either one of them are super hard use. I wouldn't compare either one of them to, say, a Cold Steel or a Zero Tolerance, although the Manix would be, I think, a little harder use, a little hardier than the military. Now you can debate that with me, and I'd be totally open to hearing other opinions. That's just my perception as I've used these two blades. All right, there you go. Both of these are awesome blades. I'm surprised these aren't compared all the time, but now they've been compared. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we will talk to you soon.